From Minnesota to Michigan, one of the worst affected states in the US. It hasn't stopped these protesters from violating a stay-at-home order to oppose their Democratic governor's coronavirus restrictions. Lending them his support, President Trump took to Twitter. His tweets come less than a day after Trump told states that it was up to them to lift restrictions and handle testing. But it didn't stop him from lashing out at the governor of New York, which has the highest coronavirus death toll in the country. During his daily coronavirus briefing, Governor Cuomo lambasted the president, accusing his administration of abandoning the states on the all-important issue of widespread testing.
Health officials in British Columbia say measures put in place to prevent the spread of the coronavirus are working. New modeling data shows the province has been successful at flattening the curve.
Well, you know, we've talked so much about flattening the curve, planking the curve, as Dr. Tam has said. So we heard from BC today saying that they believe they flattened the curve and that they have some cautious optimism that beyond that, they may be taking that next step of seeing that curve begin to dip slightly. Now, it, of course, is cautious optimism. They are couching everything they've been saying by the fact that people need to continue doing what they've been doing, and now is not the time to remove your foot from the gas.
Let's now shift our attention over to South America as Ecuador has begun storing the bodies of coronavirus victims in giant refrigerated containers as morgues and hospitals are filling up. The Andean nation's COVID-19 outbreak has overwhelmed the health system, in some cases even leaving authorities unable to collect the bodies of the deceased. The government has now been forced to temporarily store corpses in refrigerated shipping containers. The runway of the former Quito International Airport, which had been converted into a park, will be the center for the collection of corpses if deaths increase in the capital. Ecuador has reported nearly 8,500 coronavirus cases and 420 deaths.
This is a live shot of the Ruby Princess cruise ship, which could remain at Port Kembla, south of Sydney, for another week until the crew is well enough to leave Australian waters. One family, devastated by the outbreak on board, is now heading to court, suing the owners for $1 million.
It's the floating shame on Australia's COVID report card. The Ruby Princess docked for a 13th night at Port Kembla, the crew still too sick to travel. With 9 new confirmed cases overnight, now 162 of the 1,000 crew are recovering from the virus. They're also being tested for COVID-19 antibodies to determine the level of immunity on board.
All loaded up. All these boxes, 2,000 face masks in each box. And
we've had our push clearance, so we are
1,000 in each of these in every hat rack. Whole plane, jam out.
We're on the runways, on the orderly runways now.
All the way up the whole plane. So it was all that. That's as far as it goes. All the traveller down the back. All done. 12-hour flight on the way out. A bit more to go home. See you later.
Out of the darkness, figures emerge. Emaciated, exhausted, their eyes a mirror of the horrors they've experienced. Clutching their children, or what's left of their belongings, they stagger ashore. The final steps almost too much for some. At least 24 Rohingya refugees are said to have starved to death on board after their boat failed to reach Malaysia and drifted for weeks. The UN's refugee agency has sent staff to help, describing the survivors as extremely malnourished and dehydrated.
We suffered a lot. We were adrift for 2 months. Many of the people died. There were more than 500 of us. Now there are only 400.
Where is the Pakistani Prime Minister? It's been days since we last heard from him. He was last seen on television on the 12th of April. He made a request for a loan waiver and urged the IMF for a massive relief fund in a video posted on his Twitter handle. Now another video has emerged and it has gone viral on social media. It shows Imran Khan sitting with a rosary in his hand and apparently crying in silence for his nation. It's not weird at all that he did all of this with the camera rolling. Some exceptional camera skills too there. Was Imran Khan really crying though? We don't know. And we wouldn't bother with that question very much.
Disinfecting a nursing home in Bergamo in Lombardy, the region at the centre of Italy's COVID-19 outbreak. These pictures show Russian military doctors helping out their Italian colleagues. But a scandal now surrounds Italy's largest nursing home in nearby Milan, where at least 143 people have died since the beginning of March. Families of residents there are demanding answers, following reports medical staff was stopped from using protective gear. Prosecutors are now investigating that facility and more than a dozen others. Italy's officially recorded over 22,000 coronavirus deaths, but most care home deaths are not included, and some doctors suspect the real figure could be twice as high.
Once the family noticed that he hadn't been home for most of the day, his mom went out looking for him. She searched the whole street. We understand there was a funeral taking place that day as well. And she went up and down. At some point, she decided to go and report him missing to the nearest police station, which is here in Ivory Park. They searched for him throughout the night on Friday to no avail. Same thing happened on Saturday until the police had mentioned that there was a body of a child that was found on Sunday. While they were still searching, they had described the body, but saying that this particular body was found without its head. The family of Sipesihle then went to identify him, and subsequently they are still, of course, mourning, but they have been unable to bury Sipesihle because of the fact that his body is not complete.